I'll tell you what, I don't know if you guys can hear it, but we've got the sky lift coming to lift the mule up onto the top of the mountain for us today. We're going to take us an air ride. Not really, but we're going to let this helicopter fly over. He can leave us alone, thanks. Looks like we've got a couple of them rolling through. Let's see if I can chase them. Well, we finally made it to springtime and everybody's getting busy. I'll tell you, you get out on the road right now and it's everybody's moving around. And that's a good thing. We're all looking forward to the Memorial Day weekend coming up. And I know a lot of you guys are going to be putting your side-by-sides and ATVs on trailers. And that's going to be the topic of the video today. Maintenance for the wheel bearings. And a lot of these manufacturers nowadays are actually installing these bearing buddies on your trailer when you purchase it, so it may not be something you have to do. Your trailer may already have them on there. Let's give you a look at what I'm talking about. I'm going to show you how I grease mine, and it does prevent you being broke down on the side of the road. If you're trying to get where you want to go play with your side-by-side and enjoy your family time, you most certainly don't want to be out on the interstate or a highway broke down with all this gear setting here, just simply for a hot bearing that you could have done with a grease gun at home. Let's get started with it. I use standard wheel bearing grease. Let's see, this is made by Chevron, and I'm pretty sure we picked this up at one of the local stores there. But there's a grease cert right here, and you just simply put your grease gun in, start pushing grease in there, and about the time you see the spring start to move out, that's enough. And then just simply replace the rubber cap that comes along with them. And that's all you got to do. I always turn that around a little bit so it doesn't get slung out on the highway. And now this thing is good for several trips. It also keeps water out of your bearings when you're running down the highway and you get all that overspray blowing back to your trailer. Sometimes it can creep in and around the seals of the bearing itself. So having a little bit of pressure from that grease will help keep that out of there. This really started with boat trailers because you was constantly backing the boat trailer down into the water, and having these bearing buddies on there, you could keep pressure on the bearing and seal, and that would keep the water out. That worked really great. And now to see them moving into just standard trailers for us, that's a great idea. Now some of these will actually have just simply a rubber cap that goes all the way around your bearing protector, and you can see this particular style is inside of the little hub here. Now these guys are offset. There we go. Kind of hard to see, but you should see that start to push out here in just a second. Doesn't take a whole lot, and like I said, I never over grease them. Just about the time I see some movement on that spring in there, because there's a spring that lays right inside this cap, and as I start pushing this grease into this hub, it pushes pressure against that spring, and that's an indicator as to how much grease you have in there and when you have it up to capacity. And I'm starting to see it move now. If these bearings are dry, I guarantee you're going to be stranded on the highway, and it can cost you a couple of $100 by the time you've gotten repaired and back on the highway, plus all your time you'd rather be riding the mule. There's cheap insurance there, I should say. And we're going to go ahead and grease the tongue jack while we're here. And these don't take much. And this is the kind of stuff that I don't like having to do. Once I'm loaded up and ready to go and get to where our destination is, I don't want to have to be worried about this kind of stuff. I'd rather do it now. So you've determined that you have a standard bearing cover, and you're going to replace it with your Bearing Buddie, all you have to do, you can see this edge right here where it is matching the hub, is take a flat screwdriver and a rubber mallet, and you can actually start working this out of the hub there. You don't want to crush it, just nice and easy, and once you get it started out, you should be able to wiggle it back and forth and remove it from the hub. And then once you get it out of there, you can measure across the inside diameter of that, and that will let you know what size Bearing Buddie you need to purchase for the exact measurement on your hub. Then when you go back on with your new Bearing Buddie, and again, a rubber mallet works really well because you can't do any damage with it, and just back and forth in 4 directions there until you've worked the new bearing cover into the hub, and make sure that you seat that edge up right against the hub itself. That way it can't let water in or grease out. If you do suspect that you are having an axle or a bearing heating up on you, a real easy way is if you've already been towing for 5 or 10 miles or you're an hour into your trip, you can actually get out and see if you can first of all smell grease burning, but then secondly, just hold your hand. Now don't touch these things after you've been running down the highway because they get hot, specifically if you're hauling heavy, okay? So you can hold your hand around this or even touch the outside of the wheel, because if this thing is starting to seize up on your axle, it'll actually generate enough heat to make everything hot here, okay? So a real easy test. If you feel excessive heat around this, you need to either install these or put grease in your Bearing Buddie. Now I do have a quick story for you. These are not steps. Had a friend of mine with a brand new boat. They were washing it up, and this was about the 3rd trip out he had with it, and we determined that he stood on this in order to enter the boat, do some final cleaning before he went on his fishing trip. Well, it turns out by stepping on that, he had loosened it just enough to where they got about 15 miles from his home, and he started thinking that he was smelling grease or smelling something burning. And they got out and walked around the trailer, and this is one of those things that's kind of out of sight, out of mind. He didn't even look to see that it was already gone. Then he continued out another 60 miles, and this thing had got hot enough to where it locked up. So now they can really see smoke coming off the boat trailer, and he knows he has a problem. So at this point now, he's 90 miles from home, and he's in a remote area for his fishing trip. Long story short, he ended up spending all day chasing parts, got into several $100s worth of repair, and as you're entering or exiting any trailer, regardless if this is a standard bearing cap or these new Bearing Buddies that you've just put on, it's always good as you're walking around the trailer to double check, make sure they're still there, and then secondly, never use them as a step. He learned that the hard way and cost him a day of fishing. Now, one pointer I have for you that is easily forgotten by all of us. If you don't want to purchase a trailer, you can go to your local U-Haul rental and get pretty much any trailer size that you need. They have tandem axles, single axles, box trailers, and typically if you was renting it for the whole weekend, you can do that less than $100. So you're not paying personal property taxes, license plates, insurance, and all that on one of these. If you're like me and don't really haul your UTV around all the time, that's something that may pay for you and save you a lot of money. By the time you bought your trailer, and then all the upkeep for it, as well as everything that comes along with it, taxes and insurance, you're talking a pretty good amount of money versus just going over and renting a trailer for the weekend. And if you only do that 2 or 3 times a year, you're going to save yourself quite a bit. But there we go, guys. A real easy way to help your trailer last you a lifetime and not give you a lot of trouble. Not be broke down on the road. You'd rather be out on the trail or getting home hauling whatever you're hauling, and instead of having to chase parts and be on the side of the highway. And definitely, if you're going to spend a fishing trip out, you'd rather make it to the water, right? I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I hope it's helpful for you in some way. You guys be careful out there towing anything. I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.